All right. Thank you all for waiting patiently. A wonderful morning or evening to everyone who has joined today. From Manage Engine's family, we would like to extend a warm welcome and sincere thanks to all of our customers, partners, and users who are using our solution. Endpoint management and security is one of the main focus areas of Manage Engine. And we will be looking at the Desktop Central UEM solution today specifically for remote control and OS deployment and provisioning. Let me introduce myself. My name is Harsha Kumar, and I'm a product specialist with Manage Engine. I take care of endpoint management products, including Desktop Central, which is soon to be revamped as Endpoint Central. I'm also a seasoned technical support engineer assisting customers in their implementation, consultation, and troubleshooting in case of any challenges. In today's webinar, we will be focusing on endpoint management solutions, which has different products under the portfolios of management and security. Let's have a look at the training schedule. We are on week 5, that is OS provisioning and remote management of endpoints. We have completed few other webinars on the previous weeks, like patch management, vulnerability and threat management, application management, and modern management for your mobile devices or Windows 10 laptops. We are on week 5, which is OS provisioning and remote management. And next week, we will be focusing on setting up legacy devices and onboarding your modern devices onto Desktop Central. In case if you have missed any of our previous webinars, do not worry. Simply let us know on the chat or visit the link shown here on the bottom of the screen. You can view pre-recorded webinar videos of the webinar sessions. If you are interested on the upcoming webinar for May 11th, again, visit the same link and register yourself for the same. We are also offering a participation certificate for our attendees. It includes the series 1, 2, and 3 that was conducted from April 6th all the way till March 11th of 2022. So for more details, visit the same link or let us know over the chat. Without further ado, let's begin. Today's topic is OS provisioning and remote management of endpoints. We will first start with the remote management of the endpoints and focus on the options in remote control and the other tools that Desktop Central offers to manage your endpoints in a distributed environment. Let's talk about today's agenda. We will first start with an overview of Desktop Central. We will address the different difficulties in managing the endpoints in a distributed environment and what options of Desktop Central provides to overcome these challenges. Followed by that, we will discuss on few real-time use cases of remote control and the other tools, namely how we can set expectations for patch cycles or any other notifications through the announcement functionality. We will see how you can raise a ticket request from the Desktop Central endpoint and have that resolved. Also, how you can troubleshoot system slowness with remote management. After that, my colleague Paul will be helping you with provisioning new PCs with OS deployment, driver compliances in Windows 10 deployments, and OS deployment for your work from home users. During the training, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop a message on the chat window. I have an expert panel with me who will address your questions likewise. All right, so let us assume this scenario. There is John, who is an IT admin, who is responsible for managing a distributed workforce. He is headquartered in Dallas and is managing 10,000 computers globally. So he has remote locations like Sydney, Chennai, London, and Bogota. Now, there are users who connect by your corporate VPN. users who have limited internet connectivity, and your completely remote users who can be managed through a secure gateway server for the on-premise version without requiring a VPN or a LAN connectivity. So all of these different type of users can be managed through a single solution. This is the on-premise architecture, and this slide is the cloud architecture where your agents speak to the cloud instance directly. So just a quick overview on Desktop Central. What is Desktop Central? Desktop Central, for those who do not know, is a unified endpoint management solution that ensures all of your endpoints are managed securely and enables the user to use them effectively for business. A popular research analyst called Forrester defines UEM as a product that provides a centralized policy engine for managing and securing employee laptops and mobile devices, all from a single console. So Desktop Central's UEM edition performs both traditional management and modern management. Traditional management are your traditional features where once you install the agent, you can push out your Windows patches or your Mac or Linux patches, including third-party applications. You can push out software packages to the user, deploy configurations like scripts or registry changes, get complete asset information, hardware and software related of the computer, remote into those computers, image and deploy images to the machines, and the other tools that Desktop Central provides, like remote shutdown or a voice call with the end user. This would fall under traditional management, but we also have modern management where your Windows 10 laptops, Windows 11 laptops, your MacBooks, and even your iOS devices, including Chromebooks, can be managed. Where you have features like geo tracking or location tracking of the devices, geofencing, pushing out apps from the App Store or the Windows Store, and configuration deployment and remote reset of the laptops as well, like wiping the data from the laptops or mobile devices. So the best of both worlds, that is traditional and modern management, can be done easily through Desktop Central. Desktop Central has also been recognized as one of the best unified endpoint management tool this year yet again, as reviewed by our customers in the Gartner Peer Insight Customers' Choice Award. We are also recognized in the top 4 IDC MarketScape reports for UEM solutions this year. So these are the different categories of recognition. Hence, through a single solution, you can manage all of your endpoints, not excluding your laptops, your desktops, mobile devices, server operating systems, point of sale devices, and even the browsers that are installed on your end devices. All of these can be managed from a single console. Like I mentioned, we support all the 3 major platforms. So Windows, Mac, and Linux flavors are supported. Here is a complete list of the operating systems that we support, from Windows 7 to Windows 11, from Windows Server 2003 all the way up to 2022. For Mac OS, from 10.7 Lion all the way up to Monterey, and several flavors of Linux operating systems are also supported. And all you require is the single agent to be installed on your client machines. So let's begin with the remote control functionalities. Here are some typical use cases that I have listed here. For example, if you raise a ticket and you want to resolve the ticket and troubleshoot from Desktop Central, perform remote management and remote control, enforcing important IT policies to those devices, and seamlessly communicating with the end user over a text chat, voice, or a video call through Desktop Central. Let's start off with the first use case. Now, you want to broadcast an announcement to your remote users. and you want to inform them regarding your patching cycle to leave their machines on for the third Saturday of the month. So how do you communicate this through Desktop Central? It's very simple. Let me show you how you can do that. On the Desktop Central console, simply navigate to the Tools tab where all our remote support functionalities are available. Simply go to Announcement and hit on Create Announcement to compose a preferred message to broadcast to your end users. You can enter a customized title, the preferred content message. You can attach a link as well or attach a table to the announcement. You can show the announcement either once on the computers or multiple times at frequencies of your preference, like every 20 minutes or once every 4 hours or once in 3 days. You can specify the start time and the end time of the announcement simply by selecting over here. And between this window, the announcement will be broadcasted either once or multiple times on frequencies of your preference. And you can target entire offices or a specific group of computers or to the entire domain as per your preference. So as an example, you can create an announcement like this to inform the end users regarding your patching cycle. And then you can publish that to the end user. So once this is published, the end user will see a message on their desktop, something like this. This is the end user view. So the exact message that you show will be displayed to them on their desktop, which they can minimize or dismiss it if required. That way, you can keep all of your distributed workforce in the loop regarding your patching cycle or any other purposes as and when required. So this is how you create and broadcast announcements to the end users. Let's look at another scenario. There is an end user, Bob, who's raising a ticket which is assigned to a technician, and he requires assistance on two things, maybe installing an application or also fixing an issue with the display adapter. So let us see how a technician, that is John, can assist Bob on these two issues that he's raising. So something to inform before this, Desktop Central can integrate with ticketing solutions. We have our own in-house ticketing solution known as Service Desk Plus, which has a tight integration with both the solutions. We also integrate with other applications as well, like ServiceNow if required. Simply let us know over the chat for the complete details. So going back to the console, first, the end user can raise the request from their agent icon. Simply right-click the agent icon and click on Send Request to Help Desk. So Bob can enter the subject over here and inform the user regarding the entire issues that he is facing and raise the request to the help desk. John can log into his ticketing solution and see the ticket that has been raised by Bob. So he can see that he requires assistance in installing an application and fixing the display adapter issues. So let's see how John is going to be helping Bob resolve this issue. In order to initiate a remote control, simply go to the Tools tab and you can either search for the computer from here and instantly perform quick actions, or simply click on your preferred functionality. Let's go with remote control here. We can search for any computer, user, or IP address, or based on the platform as well. And you can hit on connect to initiate a remote control session with the end user. When I hit on connect, I can enter a reason message for audit purposes. And if I've integrated with the ticketing solution like Service Desk Plus, I can enter the request ID of that ticket. So here I see the request ID is 10. So I can optionally add the request ID here in order to post data to the ticket directly. So once I hit on connect on a new browser window, the remote session will be initiated. Now, by default, I will have unattended access to the machine. But if you require to be HIPAA compliant, you can enable the user confirmation dialog box where Bob will be requested for permission, and only if Bob approves the permission, John, the IT admin, will have access to the computer. You can also exclude certain computers if you do not want to ask permission, like a server operating system, for example. So going back to this remote session, simply hit on connect and enter a message. And on a new window, the remote session will be initiated. Now, on this remote control session, there's a bunch of functionalities that are built in. First, Bob is notified that an admin is controlling his screen. So he can be notified and be in regulatory under compliances. We have complete multi-monitor support. So in case the Windows, Mac, or Linux machines have multiple monitors, you can switch between them simultaneously if required. And on the left-hand side, you have multiple functionalities that you can make use of. So your typical full screen or actual size option. If you're on the login screen, you can simply hit on Control Alt Delete to log into the window. These are your typical options. However, we have other options like blackened monitor. So let's say that John wants to access a software repository like a network share securely. He can hit on blacken monitor and blacken the end user, that is Bob's monitor. So Bob does not see what network share that John is accessing, and unblacken the monitor as and when required. I can disable their keyboard input or quickly take a screenshot for troubleshooting purposes. Now I can normally browse through the operating system, or John can also use the quick launch options that are available here. So let's say that he wants to access command prompt as an admin. Simply click on command prompt, and on the background, you can see command prompt is instantly launched as administrator without prompting you for any credentials. And even if you perform a task that requires admin privileges, the UAC prompt or the admin prompt will not be censored or hidden to you like typical remote control solutions. You can fully access that admin prompt and enter your credentials as and when required. So not just command prompt, things like control panel, your firewall settings on the machine, or task manager, registry, simply click it, and on the background, it is instantly launched, thereby saving you a lot of time. You can also securely transfer files to and from the end user. So if you want to share the Adobe Acrobat setup or any other files that you want to share, that can be done. And you can also engage on a live text chat, voice, or a video call with Bob in order to provide even better or faster support. So I can access the required network share and install the application silently without having to show Bob any of these options simply by blackening his monitor. And once I install the application, I can go with the second issue that Bob raised, that is fixing network adapter issues. But let's assume that John, that is me, I'm not well equipped to troubleshoot that issue. And I want to invite my colleague Peter to help me with this. That can also be done. Peter can again log into Desktop Central on his console and again click on connect under the remote control session. And both Peter and John, both the technicians or more than that, can simultaneously access the remote control functionality and provide support to the end user. You can switch to a monitor only mode, that is the view only mode if required, if you want to monitor as Peter, who has joined in the session, is providing support. So Peter, in order to troubleshoot the display adapter option, he can simply search for device manager here and quickly launch device manager and install the required adapters or reinstall it as and when required. And after installing, he can easily perform a reboot directly from here. So we not only have quick launch, but handy power options as well. So if you want to log off the computer or reboot the computer, that can be done from here. And yes, if you reboot the computer from here, you will automatically reconnect the session. So that way, you don't have to initiate a remote control again after reboot. There are few other handy admin tasks like running the GP update command or configuring the task scheduler directly from here. So all the admin frequented options are neatly tucked in under this quick launch options for your easy use. Once completed, all you have to do is just close the window to terminate the remote control session. Now, once I closed, it is prompting me to add additional details because I've integrated with the ticketing solution, Service Desk Plus. I can mark the ticket as resolved directly from here. I can attach work logs over here. I can add resolutions and add nodes to the session. So I can provide the required data over here and click on save. And the data has been successfully posted to Service Desk Plus. So when I go back to Service Desk Plus and click on the ticket, you can see that the ticket has been marked as resolved automatically. The resolution that I've added, the work logs that I've added is automatically entered over here. And the amount of time spent on the remote session is automatically calculated and entered over here. That way, you do not have to jump between multiple solutions. All of your resolving and remote support functionalities can be done directly from remote control. You can also screen record the entire remote control session. So for training or for audit purposes, you can enable this option. And under the history tab, you can find out which technician remoted to what computer, at what time, for how long, and you can download and review the video as well for training or just to have as a reference as what was performed on the last remote control session. Now, we saw how remote control can be done, but let's have an overview on how remote control works. It is a very simple process. Technician 1, that is John, initiates a remote control from Desktop Central. Now, from his console, an alert is sent to the primary Desktop Central server, which has two components. One, it is a service known as the notification server, which is continuously listening on the port 8027. And this port will alert the end user that a remote control session has to be initiated. And once initiated, all of the images or the live images of the end user is broadcasted through the gateway server through HTTPS that you provide to Peter, that is the technician. Now, when the second technician wants to join the same remote control session, he can join the same session because this gateway service has the intelligence to find out if there is an existing session. So he can join the same session and the gateway service will provide the same images to the second technician who is joining. So any number of technicians can simultaneously provide support to the end user. The remote control service that is running on the Bob's computer, that is your client machine, will run and will allow the end user, that is Bob, to be assisted by the two technicians who are providing support to Bob. So this is just a simple overview on how the remote control works. Now, let's talk about another use case, troubleshooting system slowness in a distributed workforce. So let's assume that Bob is raising a ticket saying that my system is running slow. So how does a technician try to troubleshoot this silently without disturbing Bob at all? Let me show you. Simply navigate to the Tools tab. Now you can again perform a remote session, but let's assume that Bob is not free for a remote session or you want to quickly provide support. Just go to the System Manager functionality that you see here. In System Manager, you can search for your preferred computer and click on Manage, where you can access things like Task Manager, the command prompt, the file manager, or view the event logs live without even having to disturb the end user. So let's say I click on Task Manager on a new window, Task Manager will be initiated. And here I can see the running processes on the computer and the different startup programs that are present as well. I can see complete details of the machine that I'm remoting to. So their IP address, their logged in user details, all of them will be listed over here. We also have the option of accessing things like command prompt and file manager securely. So let me show you a quick example here. You can see the running services from the task manager. There is no task manager popping up in the end user's computer. This is completely silent and on-demand support that you can provide. You can sort by the memory usage over here and kill the processes on demand without even having to contact Bob in the first place. You can search by the PID or the process name, or even check out the startup programs and enable and disable the startup programs as and when required. You can see the running services on the computer and restart the services on demand, or disable the services or start the services as and when required. Again, you can search for these values or filter by the type, like only show me disabled services, from which I can easily auto or change it into a manual mode to start the service. If I want to quickly get some data like their IP address, I can use the command prompt option. I can enter any command over here and get instant output, but the end user is not disturbed in any way. I can also access the registry and make any registry modifications as and when required. I can browse between the registry hive. I can modify any of the registry values on demand. Or if I want to add a value, yes, that can also be done. If I want to export the value, that can also be done, or simply add an entire new key to the hive that I'm browsing as well. You can also securely transfer files to and from the end user. If I want to quickly share some important documents or files silently, I can perform my typical cut, copy, rename, delete operations as well, or download a file from the user's computer to my computer, or quickly create a folder here as well for my requirements, and I can transfer files to the computer directly from here. Or if I want to see the event logs, that can also be done. I can filter the event logs, browse between them, search for additional details, or simply export the entire event logs as PDF, CSV, or as an Excel format on demand. Or I can access things like the device manager and see what devices are present and connected, and disable a rogue device as well on demand without having to contact Bob for that. So all of these functionalities, including computer rename, which will allow you to rename the host name of the computer, can be done completely silently from our system manager functionality that you see here. So not only system manager, but we can look at other functionalities as well. So let's say that you want to engage on a text chat, voice, or a video call with Bob. Simply search for the computer or user and trigger your preferred option from here. Without having a remote session, you can engage on a conversation seamlessly with them. And in case of a text conversation, you can have a transcript history saved over here. So you can find out what was communicated on previous chat conversations as well. So this is how you can silently provide support to Bob and even engage on a conversation with them without having to remote to the computer on the first place. Now, we spoke about system slowness. So right now I showed you reactive methods. Let me show you about proactive methods. There is a system tools functionality here where you can add a task to run things like check disk cleanup, or disk defragmenter on a scheduled basis for your computers. So for check disk, you can prefer your specific drive and enable the quick check option. For disk cleanup, you can automatically configure the storage sense option for Windows 10 versions and above. For older versions, the disk cleanup utility can be configured, so your preferred junk files can be automatically cleaned up. And for disk defragmenter, in case you have a use case for them, you can specify your preferred drives multiple at a time and choose to perform disk defragmentation as well to your preferred set of offices or specific group of computers or a range of IP address or specific computers of your preference. And then you can schedule this system tools to be run at your preferred window, like either once or weekly at specific days of the week, or monthly, or at system startup at a preferred date and time as a recurring basis. So once you save the scheduler, you can ensure that system slowness can be easily mitigated just by creating a task as a proactive measure. That way, all of your computers will remain healthy without having to provide support often. Now, going back to our use cases, let's look at how you can enable IT policies to monitor endpoint productivity in your distributed workforce. What I mean by that is, let's say you want to find out the user logon history of a computer, or you want to see the overall system uptime and downtime of a machine, or you want to track and meter the usage of applications, or even monitor the browser activity of every user. All of this can be done through Desktop Central. Let me show you how that can be done. So these are some few examples that are shown here. Let us go over them one by one. First is generating user logon reports. So in order to get user logon reports, simply go to the reports tab on the top and click on user logon reports. So we have a bunch of predefined reports that are available here. If you want to filter by users or computers or machines with no user logon. Most frequently used is user logon history, where for every computer and user, you get complete user logon and log off time. You can find out the exact time the user has logged in and logged off from their computer for all the machines that you manage. We can also look at power management reports on the left-hand side. Simply click on power management, where you have the system uptime report, where you can find out the overall system uptime and downtime for all the computers that you manage as a summary view or as a detailed view as well. So the overall computer start time and shutdown time is recorded, and the total usage duration is also informed over here. You can also click on a machine to get the machine respective information and find out the total uptime and downtime of the machine. For more details, simply switch over to the detailed view, which will give you the exact time count for the login and the log off for every day that was recorded. Now, since we are on the topic of power management, and let's say that a system has been up for 4 days, and you want to restart that machine or shut it off, how can you do that? Simply go back to our tools module again, where we did our remote control and system manager and announcements. We also have a remote shutdown functionality, where not just shutting down, but you can on demand shut down, restart, hibernate, standby, or lock your computers on demand. You can choose to force a restart or allow the users to skip the restart operation if required. You can give them ample time before their machines are restarted and show a customizable message to them. If you don't want to do this on demand, you can schedule a task as well. Simply go to the schedule option and add a task over here which can be performed for your Windows, Mac, or your Linux machines. You can also meter the application usage. That was the third thing on the use cases, where you can meter how long an application has been used, by which user, the overall usage duration, and the last time the application was used. So all of that can be tracked from our inventory software metering option, where you can track an application, let's say chrome.exe, and simply create a rule for your preferred applications to track the activity. And finally, we have web activity tracking. Now, web activity tracking is part of the endpoint security add-on that is available, where you can perform complete browser management and protection, including tracking their web activity, application whitelisting and blacklisting, data encryption and loss prevention, and even mitigate the vulnerabilities and threats detected on your machines. So this is part of the endpoint security add-on, which you can enable from the admin tab. So simply enable this and try it out for 30 days. If you want a demo on this, simply let us know over the chat. We also have conducted a webinar on this on the earlier weeks, which you can check out on the link that is shown on the screen as well. So here we saw the typical use cases that we perform. You can remotely troubleshoot your devices as well. So if you use the on-premise version of Desktop Central through a secure gateway server, you can manage your users remotely without requiring a VPN or a LAN connectivity. We will be speaking about the architecture shortly in depth. And through these methods, you can securely perform and manage your remote users. Now, I hope these use cases gave you a good idea on the remote support functionalities. We can now proceed to OS provisioning in a distributed workforce. My colleague Paul, who is joined here with me, who is an expert, will walk you through the workflow and the different methods of OS deployment. Over to you, Paul, anytime.
Thank you, Arsha, and thank you so much for your patience for the people who have joined this training. And I hope the tools management would be very beneficial during the product installation, product evaluation. So let's quickly jump into OS deployment, and let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so before I proceed into the presentation, I would like to understand if you are able to hear my voice and view my presentation. Please do comment in the chat window just for the confirmation. All right, so I'm just getting a lot of thumbs up. Thank you so much. And let me introduce myself. My name is Paul, and I'm a product specialist who takes care of product implementation, training, and troubleshooting. So without any delay, let's see the supported operating system in OS deployment. So when it comes to OS deployment in
Hey,
Desktop
Paul,
Central,
um, I see that the users are saying that the screen is not visible. Could you try sharing your screen again once?
okay, all right. Arsha, can you hear me?
Yes, your voice is audible. Um, it seems
And
like your
my
screen is not shared.
okay, it seems like my meeting is hanged. So just bear with me. I'm very, very sorry for this bad situation. I'm going to join back again. Right? Just give me a minute.
Sorry, guys, to keep you waiting. It'll just be a minute or two. Meanwhile, I can address some questions that you have raised over the chat. So you have asked if the system manager works with Windows machines only. That is right. The system manager functionality is Windows specific. So command prompt, task manager are Windows specific features which you can access silently from your console. I also see another question. Before remote action, do we need to have user authorization? Yes, you can have it enabled under the user confirmation dialog box, where all of the users will be prompted for permission first, after which, on their approval, you will have remote access to their computer. Someone has asked about custom reports as well. Yes, we have like reports available under the reports section where customized reports can be created based on your criterias and your columns. You can also share your required columns to us or the required data, and we will provide you with the best way to generate that report. So you can get in touch with us after this webinar, and we will be assisting you with your preferred reports that you're looking to pull out.
All right, Arsha, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes, perfect. Your screen is visible
Okay.
now. Please take it away.
Screen is visible. Oh, okay, perfect. I'm very, very sorry for this bad situation. I'm not sure why it got hanged all of a sudden. I hope everyone can see my screen. Can I have some thumbs up? Okay, perfect. So without any delay, let's quickly jump into the training. All right. Let's start with the supported operating system in Desktop Central OS deployment. So when it comes to Desktop Central OS deployment, it supports Windows-based operating systems that starts from Windows XP to the right to the latest Windows Server 2019. And regarding the Linux and the Mac operating system, it's already been added in the roadmap where the development team will surely consider that in the future or in the upcoming build version. So let's see the imaging architecture. So when it comes to image capturing or creating, there are two ways we can create an image. One is online method where we can directly push the image creator component. Just to let you know, it doesn't require a desktop central agent when it comes to image creation or image deployment. So even if the mission, whether it's going to be a workgroup device or a domain mission, we can directly select a particular mission to create an image from the console itself. And the other way is offline imaging, where we need to use a bootable media, where we can use a Pixie or USB or ISO to boot the target mission to fetch the partition details to create an image. So these are the steps when it comes to online image or offline image to create an image where we can use that image as a master image or golden image for the deployment. Let's see the deployment architecture. So when it comes to deployment, we will have a golden image or master image saved in the image repository, and we need to customize or prepare the image for the deployment. For that, we need to create a deployment template. Deployment template is nothing but we can set or select the image we are going to use it for the deployment, and also we can select the partitions, which I will be showing you everything once I get into the console. And also, there are two ways we can deploy the image. One is directly through the deployment template, where we can just boot the target mission and use the console login credentials, admin credentials, or a local credential to directly select the deployment template to proceed with the deployment, or we can schedule the deployment by creating a deployment task. And based on the schedule, the deployment process will happen. Now let's see the prerequisites for OS deployment. There are two prerequisites. One is image repository and the other one is driver repository. These two repositories must be configured with a normal network share path where image repository is used to store the images that are getting created or captured. When it comes to driver repository, there are two collections available. One is automatic collection and the other one is manual collection. So automatic collection is used to collect the drivers in two ways. One is whenever we create or capture an image of a mission, the drivers will be collected from that mission to the automatic collection. And also, with the help of the desktop central agent, let me have a scenario for better understanding. Let's say we have installed a desktop central agent on around 500 machines, and among those missions, if we have some different, five different make and model, then Desktop Central Agent has an ability to pull out all those different drivers from the five different make and models, and those drivers will also be stored in the automatic collection. Manual collection is mainly used if any of the drivers that are required, and if those drivers are not present in the automatic collection, we can directly download the required drivers from the vendor website, copy those drivers directly to the manual collection, and use those drivers for the deployment. And I will also talk about the driver repository more in detail later for better understanding. Now let's see the first agenda in today's training, that is performing a Windows 10 deployment with the user profile data. Now I would like to have a scenario for better understanding. Let's say I am an administrator in our organization, and my manager has given me a task, that is I need to upgrade all the Windows 7 operating system by deploying a Windows 10 image. As we all know that Windows 7 operating system has become an end of life support. So in that case, I need to have user profiles and then upgrading the Windows 7 operating system to Windows 10 image. How I can do that or achieve my task, and once everything is done, I need to send the result to my manager. Now let's go ahead and check the steps that I need to perform to achieve my task. So first, I need to go ahead and create an online image, and once the image is created, I need to back up the user profiles from the Windows 7 operating system running machines. Once all the profiles are backed up, I need to create a deployment template followed by a deployment task. And then I need to create a bootable media to boot the machines to deploy the Windows 10 image. And during the post deployment, all the profiles will be migrated. Now let's see the steps one by one. All right, so I'm into the Desktop Central console where OS deployment is one of the module integrated with Desktop Central. So as we are already aware that we need to go ahead and create the image repository and the driver repository, where I've already configured these two repositories. When it comes to driver repository, I've also configured the automatic collection and the manual collection. So the first thing that I need to do is to create an image of a Windows 10 mission. Now, I have already built a Windows 10 machine by installing all kinds of required applications or softwares that will be used by all the employees in our organization. And also, I have ensured that there are no pending patches, Windows patches available. I've updated all the Windows patches. Now, the first step that I need to do to create an image is I need to add the domain, the network domain, I mean, the work group domain, as well as the Active Directory domain. Once the domains are added, I can select the domain to fetch the missions, and or I can just type in the mission name and proceed with the image creation by providing the IP address of the mission as well as the FQDN or the DNS name if it's required, as this option is not mandatory. Finally, I need to provide the credential, and whatever the credential that I'm going to provide, that credential must have the permission to access the $C of the mission, selected mission, and also whatever the mission that I'm going to select, that mission and the desktop central server must be able to ping each other over the network. So once the credential is selected, what it will do in the backend, it will automatically access the C of the mission to install the image creator component. That is the component OS deployment will use to fetch the partition details. So once the component is installed, automatically whatever the partitions that are available, it will be fetched in the console where we can see the partitions that are available in from the particular operating system, from the mission, the hard disk size, the disk driver type, and the disk style will be listed. Once all the partitions are selected, if we have any other partitions like D partition or E partition, we can either select or deselect according to our requirement during the image creation. Next is the compression level. So we do have three options: low, medium, or high. When it comes to compression level and when we performing the online imaging method, it is always recommended to go with low or medium because during the image creation, the data will be compressed and it will compressed in a block level and it will be stored in the image repository. So during the deployment, if we go with the low or medium compression, the image deployment will be faster during the decompression. The same goes with memory usage as well. We can go with low or medium so that the imaging mission will not hang up or it will not give any slow performance. Uh, It may be in the production hours during the image creation because, or maybe the user may be working on the mission or some of the applications, important applications will be running. So in order to avoid a slow performance or hanging, we can go with low or medium memory usage. The last one, we need to select the image repository. Once it's selected, we can directly proceed with start imaging. Suppose if we wanted to shrink the partition, we can go with shrink partition option. So as you can see, all these partitions are linked with one partition, that is operating system partition or C partition. So we can, if we wanted to shrink the partition, it will automatically validate the partition size, the free size, and the used space in the backend, where it will display the total size of the partition, the size available for shrinking, and also the total size after the shrinking. So based on that, we can select the partition and proceed with shrinking the partition. And once the partitions are shrunk, we can directly proceed with the image creation. And once the image is created, the partitions will be reverted back to its original size. Now, let us assume that I have successfully created a master or golden image. So this is the image that I'm going to use it for the deployment to achieve my task by upgrading the Windows 7 operating system to Windows 10 operating system. So once the image is created, I need to back up the user profile from the Windows 7 running missions. So when it comes to backing up the user profile, we can directly go ahead and select local office or remote office by adding the computers by selecting the domain. It will automatically fetch the computers by selecting the domain. And also, we can select the mission manually by typing in the computer name, where as soon as we type in the computer name, it will validate whether whether it's going to be an Active Directory domain mission or a workgroup mission. The main reason why I'm getting highlighted computers are invalid. It's because the mission that name that I have typed in is not a domain mission. It's going to be a workgroup mission where I have already listed the same mission over here, DC Lab. As you can see, it's a workgroup mission, and automatically it will fetch the IP address. And by clicking on continue, whatever the profiles that I do have in this mission will be backed up, and the user profiles will also be stored directly to the image repository share path location. So once the profiles are backed up, as I have already backed up the user profiles. So once the profiles are backed up, our next step, we need to create a deployment template. In other words, we need to customize or prepare the image for the deployment. So in order to achieve my task, I'm going to name this template as Windows 10 upgrade. And I'm going to select the Windows 10 image that I'm going to use it. And I do have two options. One is completely erase target computers, partitions, and deploy, where on the target mission, before deploying this image, it will completely format the hard disk, or it will the existing operating system will be wiped out and format the hard disk before deploying this image. Suppose if I just wanted to upgrade the operating system alone without touching the data partitions. If I have anything on the target mission, I can go with this option, add as new or overwrite the partition, where I need to modify the partition settings by providing the partition number on the target according to the target mission, so that it will just overwrite the partition numbers that are provided over here, and it will not touch the data partitions. So as of now, I'm going to go with completely erase target computer, since I've already backed up the user profiles and I need to upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10. Next is specify hard disk number to deploy image. By default, it will start with 0. If I have more than one internal hard disk on the target mission, I can use these command lines to find out the hard disk number, and based on that, I can provide it so that the image will be deployed only on that particular hard disk, and the remaining hard disk will not be touched. Next is the disk adjustment. Disk adjustment is used to extend the partition size according to the target mission hard disk size. For an example, if this image size is 465.7 gig, and if I'm going to deploy this image on the target mission hard disk where the size is 1 terabyte, where after the deployment, the C partition will be extended automatically by enabling the disk adjustment option. So from deployment template name till disk adjustment is completely a image deployment process. So once the image is deployed automatically, the post deployment process will start, where it will automatically shut down or restart, so that the post deployment settings will be applied on the target mission. So it is always recommended to go with the restart option, so that the below settings will be applied immediately. If it is going to be a shutdown, the target mission will shut down as soon as the image is deployed. So whenever the target mission is get back to its, get back to online, the post deployment process will start applying. Next is apply settings to computer using configurations given below, or we can go with computer specific settings. Computer specific settings is nothing but the below settings will be available under computer specific settings, but it will be based on the MAC address. For an example, let's say if I'm going to deploy an image to 10 MAC addresses in a month, I can go ahead and add all the 10 MAC addresses one by one, and for each MAC address, I can assign a service tag. I can select the user profiles if there are any to be migrated. I can assign a computer name. I can select the domain and the OU. And also I can select the user accounts, local user or domain users, where those users will be able to use the target mission after the deployment. Or I can directly go with computer configurations given below, where I can select the user profiles that needs to be migrated. I can either migrate all the profiles, or I can select any specific profiles that needs to be migrated. So in order to achieve my task, I'm going to migrate all the profiles. Next is computer SID settings. OS deployment has its own feature to generate a new SID, and it is not required for us to use a sysprep tool or a sysprep image to generate a new SID. Next is computer's name pattern. So I have two methods to name the target mission. One is define computer name pattern, where I can use any of these patterns to name the target mission. Or if I wanted to name the mission manually, I can use this method where I will have a specific field on the target mission during the image deployment. I can type in the computer name, and once the post deployment process starts, whatever the name that I have typed in will take into an account to become the host name of the target mission. Next is computer's domain. If I have captured an image from a workgroup mission, that as soon as I select the image over here, the domain will be listed. If I wanted to change it, I can directly select the domain and the credential, select the domain and the credential in order to make the target mission to join to the Active Directory domain. I can also select the organizational unit. Next is the user account. As I explained you before, we can add the local user or the domain user, and whatever the users that we are going to add, those users will be able to use their credentials to log into the target mission after the deployment. The last one is applications to install. This option is optional. If we wanted to install any kind of applications or softwares during the post-deployment process, we can add those applications by uploading the .exe or MSI file. And whatever the application that we're going to add, we need to provide our own silent switch command or a PowerShell script to trigger the installation during the post-deployment process. So once the template is created, our next step, we need to create a task. There are two different types of tasks. We can use any one of the tasks to deploy the image. One is a deployment task where we need to select the template. We are going to use it for the deployment. If there are any remote office location, we can configure a remote office location with a distribution server by enabling the OS deployment option. And also for each remote office location, we must have a separate image repository and the driver repository so that we can either replicate the image from the local office to the remote office if it's required, or we can select the remote office location directly during the image creation, or we can manually copy the image from local office to the remote office image repository to perform the remote office location. So if we are going to perform the remote office deployment, the remote office locations will be listed below after configuring, where we can also select the remote office. Next is the deployment mode, where OS deployment will generate a 4-digit passcode to start the deployment process on the target mission in a secured way. So this 4-digit passcode will not be in active status when it comes to deployment task. It will be in active status only based on the wait for time. By default, it will start with 10 minutes. So whenever we deploy an image and we are going to use a deployment task, we need to start the deployment task in the console. And based on the wait for time, we need to provide the 4-digit passcode on the target mission during the deployment. Regarding the deployment method, I will be explaining you later for better understanding. There is another task which is instant task. So when it comes to instant task, we need to again select the template for the deployment. We need to select the remote office if there are any, if we are going to perform the remote office deployment, and the 4-digit passcode will be generated. So when it comes to instant task, there are no wait for time concept. And also once the task is created, this 4-digit passcode will be in active status or in running status every time. So once the task is created, our final step, we need to create a bootable media. So let us assume that we have created a bootable media. I will be explaining you in detail about the bootable media later for better understanding. So as of now, we have created a bootable media. So let us assume that I have achieved my task by deploying the Windows 10 image with the user profile data. So I have successfully upgraded the operating system from Windows 7 to Windows 10, and I have sent the result to my manager. Now let's see some real-time challenges that we face during the image deployment. The first one, driver compliant Windows 10 deployment. In other words, how I can deploy an image to different make and models. So first, let's see the dissimilar hardware deployment. Let us assume that I have an image, a golden image or master image captured from the Dell mission, and I wanted to deploy it to a HP mission. How I can achieve this task? So let us assume that I have already created the master image from a Dell mission. I have created a deployment template, and let us assume that I have also created an instant task. Now, let's say the HP mission is a new mission which is just out of the box where there is no operating system. So if there is no operating system running on the mission, it is not possible for me to create an image of that mission to get the drivers automatically collected, or it is not possible for me to install the agent to collect the drivers automatically of the HP mission. In that case, I need to use a manual collection where I need to download the HP mission make and model drivers from the vendor website. Once the package is downloaded, I need to extract the package, copy those extracted folder directly to the manual collection share path, and select the manual collection to scan the driver repository so that the newly added drivers will be scanned. So once I get the right drivers, I can create a bootable media by selecting the newly added drivers, or in other words, the HP drivers, and I can directly boot the HP mission by connecting the LAN Ethernet cable and deploy the Dell image. Now let's see the next real-time challenge that we face. That is deploying an image to multiple computers simultaneously. How I can do that. Now let's see the steps that are involved to achieve this task. Now, let us assume, as I said before, I have already created the image, the template, and the task is ready. Now, I need to create a bootable media. And also, when it comes to bandwidth, how we can throttle the bandwidth when deploying an image to multiple machines simultaneously. For that, I need to go with the deployment task. So first, I need to go ahead and create a deployment task, and I can directly jump on to the deployment settings where I need to select a multicast deployment method where I can set the bandwidth that needs to be used according to the computer count I'm going to deploy an image simultaneously. So whatever the bandwidth that I'm going to provide, that bandwidth will be splitted equally to the computers where the image will be deployed simultaneously. So once I set the deployment task as a multicast method, next I need to create a bootable media. There are three ways we can boot the target mission. One is a Pixie bootable media, which is nothing but pre-execution environment used to boot the mission over the network. And for this, we need a DHCP server to configure the Pixie boot. Or we can use a USB stick, or we can go with ISO bootable media. So before creating a bootable media, OS deployment will use a WinP tool, which is nothing but Windows pre-installation environment used to boot the target mission over the RAM to detect the hard disk. And it is a lightweight operating system where we need to download the setup file, the ADK setup file, and that file must be installed only on the desktop central server, and that's going to be a one-time process. And the latest version is WinPE version 10. So once we select the WinPE version, we need to select the architecture. And also when it comes to drivers, during the media creation, only two types of drivers will be listed, that is network drivers and the hard disk drivers. And also there are two ways we can select the drivers. We can either go with add vendor drivers, where we can download the required drivers according to the make and model and select only the vendor drivers and create the bootable media. Or we can go with the driver repository. That is, if we have all the required drivers in our driver repository, we can select those drivers, and the drivers which are listed over here will be network drivers and storage hard disk drivers. And it is always recommended to select all the drivers and create the bootable media so that we can have one bootable media to boot different make and models. So once the bootable media is created, for an example, let's say if it's going to be a USB bootable media, once the bootable media is created, I need to download the media, extract the zip file and extract it to the USB stick, connect the USB stick to boot the target mission. And once the target mission establishes a communication with the desktop central server, it will ask for the 4-digit passcode. And if it's going to be a deployment task, since it's going to be a multicast method, we can we need to start the deployment task. And once the task is started, we can provide the 4-digit passcode. And also, as soon as you provide the 4-digit passcode on the target mission, we can remove the USB stick, connect the USB stick to the other mission, boot and enter the 4-digit passcode, remove the USB stick, and it goes on according to the computer count that we are going to use it for the deployment simultaneously. The deployment process, when it comes to multicast deployment, it will start as soon as the wait for time completes or the wait for time expires. When it comes to unicast deployment, as soon as you enter the 4-digit passcode, the deployment process will start, and we can check the status of the deployment, where there will be two status. One is the image deployment process. Once the image is deployed successfully, automatically the post deployment process will start, and we can check the status of the post deployment process as well. Let's see the last real-time challenge that we face: how we can deploy an image if the user is working from home. So when it comes to OS deployment has a new feature, which is standalone task. And this standalone task is, we need to select the template that we're going to use it for the deployment. We need to select the USB bootable media when it comes to standalone task, and whatever the target mission that we are going to deploy an image outside the network, we need to provide the particular target mission's MAC address. And once the MAC addresses are added, we need to select the data transfer rate, and the 4-digit passcode will be generated for the standalone task. Once the task is created, we need to directly download the task, and we need to run the standalone task file, and that file will pick up the image from the image repository according to the template that we will be selecting. And also it will pick the bootable media from the desktop central server. And these two things will be saved or will be extracted to the external device. You can either connect the external device or a USB stick. Wherever you run the file, automatically it will be saved on the USB stick. Once that is done, according to the target mission make and model, we need to have the drivers. So we can get the drivers from the vendor website, or if we already have the drivers in our driver repository, we can copy the drivers from the share path location directly to the USB stick by creating a new folder. Once that is done, we can remove the stick and we can carry it to anywhere outside the network to deploy the image without contacting the server. And also there is another way of doing it, that is through the configurations. We can push the deployment remotely, but only if the desktop central agent is installed on the target mission. If the desktop central agent is installed, we can create a script under the configurations module. We can execute that script on the target mission, where the script will automatically trigger the boot, and during the boot it will use the bootable media, and it will enter the 4-digit passcode automatically, and the deployment process will start. Now let's see the desktop central architecture. So this architecture is for the desktop central on-premise architecture, and desktop central works in a client server model. And it is going to be an agent based product where we need to install the agent on all the missions to be managed. These agent missions can connect across different locations through internet or VPN or through MPLS connections. When it comes to internet users or roaming users and mobile devices, they will connect to the desktop central server securely through a secure gateway server. And when it comes to remote office locations, we need to have a specific server, and that server will act as a distribution server, which is used to throttle the bandwidth when it comes to data traffic between the desktop central server and the remote office location distribution server. We can also use to have missions either communicate directly to the desktop central server or through the distribution server to reduce the data traffic or the bandwidth. And also, Desktop Central integrates with Active Directory to fetch the AD objects for the agent installation. In other words, to fetch all the AD missions, domain missions, and also for AD reports, we can also deploy software patches targeting the Active Directory groups or OU units. Next is how the Desktop Central product works under closed network. Desktop Central will or Desktop Central can be used in a closed network to manage our endpoints based on the Active Directory and the firewall settings when it comes to ports. And if we configure it correctly, or if we open the ports correctly based on the communication and the communication establishment, we can also, Desktop Central will also work under closed network. So how the Desktop Central cloud architecture works. Desktop Central is also available in cloud solution, where we need to sign up the trial version, which we will have a 30 days of trial period to evaluate the cloud version, and also the remaining when it comes to roaming users or local office or remote office, we will have a distribution server to manage those Active Directory missions or workgroup missions in the cloud servers, in the cloud version. When it comes to Azure or AWS, Desktop Central is also available in the marketplace for AWS and Azure. In case if you are looking to host Desktop Central, you can host it on any one of the cloud servers, and also you can use AWS or Azure on any of the VM mission. So let's have some live questions and answers. So let me check. Is there any questions that I can take from the chat? All right. I think our expert panel have already addressed all the questions raised in the chat. Now let me have some quick two questions. One is how the remote office can be configured when it comes to OS deployment. So when it comes to OS deployment, we can configure the remote office by directly configuring the distribution server by providing the server details. And when it comes to OS deployment, we need to enable this option by publishing the Pixie bootable media if we are using a Pixie media. And also we need to select the replication policy. If it is not there, we can create our own policy for the image replication. And also when it comes to remote office location, we need a separate image repository and driver repository for the remote office images and the drivers which will be replicated during the remote office deployment. I do have another question: how a Pixie bootable media can be configured. So when it comes to Pixie bootable media, as I explained to you before, we need a DHCP server to configure a scope option 66 by providing the desktop central server IP address, and scope option 67, we need to provide a boot file name, whether we are going to use legacy or UEFI. And when it comes to Pixie bootable media, we need to create our own Pixie bootable media, and we need to publish it, whether it's going to be local office or remote office. If it is going to be a remote office, it is always recommended to have a separate DHCP server for the remote office, so that under scope option 66, we can provide a distribution server IP address so that the deployment will be happening within the LAN connection. So I hope that OS deployment training would be very beneficial for you all to evaluate the product. If you have any other questions related to tools management, you can post it in the chat, and Arsha will take care and it will address you with a live scenario.
I can see some few additional questions. Can we install software pre-image? Will those softwares carry over in imaging a new computer? Yes. So for example, you will create an image of a golden machine that has all of your required applications. The exact replica of that machine will be created. So when you perform the deployment, the existing applications along with the image will be deployed along with the drivers that are applicable to that manufacturer. You can also add additional applications as a post deployment activity to install it once the image has been pushed out. So along with joining the machine to a domain or installing additional applications, that level of automation is available. I also see a question regarding distribution server, whether it has to be installed on a separate machine. Yes, the distribution server is a lightweight application that you can install on a separate Windows machine, preferably for remote office management. So let's assume you have 100 computers in a different network. Instead of deploying a patch or a software or an image to every computer individually to that remote office, the required files are replicated automatically to that distribution server for better bandwidth management. And it also does not consume any licenses. So simply go to the agent tab and then remote office and create as many remote offices as you require and manage them directly or through a distribution server based on your requirement. Hey Paul, there's also another question. Can Windows 11 be reverted back to Windows 10 if the devices are auto updated to Windows 11? So they're asking if there are any rollback options that are present.
Okay. As of now, the Windows 11 mission, yeah, image is compatible with OS deployment. We can use the Windows 11 image for the deployment, but the remote option as of now is not available in OS deployment. Maybe if you all can raise a feature request, I can check with the development team and update you over the email. If you can create a ticket by sending an email to Desktop Central License Support at manageengine.com. And I do have another question. Does sysprep need to be ran to capture a golden image when deploying at different models and manufacturer? Um, as I explained before, OS deployment has its own feature to generate a new SID. It is not required to use a sysprep tool. We can directly create an image using the image creator component using OS deployment. And during the post deployment, we can select the generate new SID option. So that will generate a new SID for the target mission, and there will not be any conflict when the mission joins to the domain and OEM.
I also see another question by Mario here. Can you remotely execute the deletion of an app data folder within a profile? Yes. So if you navigate to the configurations tab that we have, there is a configuration known as file folder operation, which will allow you to copy, move, or delete files in specific directories, even the user profile path that you mentioned. And you can enter a dynamic value over there. So users are going to be different across computers, right? So a dynamic value for the username will be entered. So the respective user's app data folder can be deleted across computers. I'll get in touch with you. I'll share you the link for the deployment as well. It is available under the configurations tab, file folder operation. Also, Paul, there is a question from John here. Will the disk adjustment work for smaller disks? Could you clarify on that?
Yes, Arsha.
Perfect. So yes, John, disk adjustment will also work for smaller disks.
Correct. And I do see another question. Is there a Mac OS deployment development path for this OS? So as of now, OS deployment in Desktop Central supports Windows-based operating system, and the Mac OS and the Linux OS is already in our roadmap, and definitely the development team will consider that based on the priority in the future or in the upcoming build version.
One more question by James here. Is it possible to manage HP thin clients in Desktop Central? So yes, thin clients are supported provided you disable a functionality known as the write filter. So thin clients have an option known as write filter over there. So if you disable that write filter option, your thin clients can be managed by the Desktop Central agent. One more question? Is it possible to uninstall any app by task silently? So yes, under the inventory tab, you can go to softwares and perform a silent installation by clicking on the trash icon against the software. If you have a script or a command line, you can push that out to multiple computers from the configurations tab custom script option as well. So either via inventory, configurations, or the software deployment module, you can perform remote uninstallations of applications silently.
All right. So I hope that we can finish off with this. Asha, yes, over to you, Asha. You can finish it off.
Yes, so thanks a lot for your time, for attendees. Sorry about the little screen share issue as well. For the remaining questions, we will be answering that, so please stay tuned. We hope that this webinar was useful in learning something new. Please do rate us based on your knowledge, and let us know if you require any demos for the product. You can just let us know if you want a demo for OS deployment or simply a proof of concept to try it out. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We are always there to help you out. Thanks a lot for your time, guys. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Goodbye.